Suffering with hypochondria? Here's someone's story that may help you find some solutions. My advice after getting mostly cured from hypochondria through psychological aid, CBT, for 5 months. I had health anxiety as my daily norm, and the worst thing about it was that I started some kind of loop. I would worry about my heart, and then I'd get heart palpitations, and sometimes, when at its worst, something that felt like irregular heartbeats. I would then worry about having heart problems and heart attacks. I was put on a medication, antihistamine, to ease these heartbeats so that I would be able to sleep, as I would have palpitations for multiple hours before somehow falling asleep. When I first came in to meet my psychologist, I had a plan set up, filled with things that I did not believe in first: imaginary exposure, physical exposure, and the difference between watching and observing. If you are not able to meet a psychologist, I would recommend reading into these and learning how to do different exercises surrounding them. I'm going to give a brief description of these words and my exercises, but I would also like to start by saying that I am in no way an expert and will only be writing from my experiences. 1. Watching versus observing. This is something that everyone with health anxiety does, and it is also something that increases symptoms. I still struggle with this a bit, and it is the last thing holding me back. I started getting heart palpitations for the first time in almost 2 months last week by watching a video by Dr. Mike, where he started speaking about heart problems at the same time as I was doing an exercise that had my pulse up. This made me go from a state of observing any potential symptoms I would have in my heart, like most people do, to watching for a symptom, which is the worst thing you can do. My exercise here was to lie for a minute and focus only on breathing, then 1 minute on a symptom I've been struggling with, to then focus on something in my room. This should be done in silence, and the first 2 parts has to be done with your eyes closed. When breathing, you should try your hardest not to hyperfocus on a symptom. I did 2 sets of 4 reps of this every day. 2. Imaginary exposing. This is where the biggest difference happened. Your objective is to make a chart and then write down the worst possible scenario. For me, it was to get sarcoma, being unable to be cured and slowly fading away from life, leaving my parents behind in tears and missing the future I had in front of me. I would then spend 10-20 minutes making a story in my head of this happening. The most important step of this is not neutralizing your thoughts. You are not to think this is unlikely. This was horrible to do in the beginning, and as someone who barely cries, this did the job. That also means that I was able to cry on command, like an actor LOL. The tears stopped after many days of doing this, and it became easier to do. This led to me being able to handle this fear with way more control. My psychologist compared this to a scary movie. It might be very scary the first time, but if you watch it 30 times, it won't be scary. 3. Physical exposing. This exercise consisted of mostly doing things that simulate different symptoms. 1 was to wear a tight shirt, thyroid things. 1 was to run upstairs for a couple of minutes, heart palpitations-ish, or to breathe through a straw, difficulty breathing. You can create challenges depending on who you are. I did these different things over and over again until I no longer felt any anxiety connected to this one thing. It worked really well. These things might not help you, but it really helped me. And if you haven't visited a psychologist because you are too afraid to, do it. It is a big regret that I did not do it earlier.